It was the summer of 1223. The south coast of Goryeo, Korea bared witness to the merciless storm about to plunder its inhabitants' way of life. The eastern wind has brought with it a blight. The Wokou pirates had arrived. The coastal defenses crumbled like brittle parchment under their attacks. Homes and granaries were looted and then set aflame. People scrambled to escape the onslaught. Thriving villages were reduced to ruins as they were marked by the stench of burning wood and death. This was the first recorded raid of the Wokou pirates, but it would not be their last. Through the 13th and 16th centuries, they laid waste to countless coastal areas of Korea, China, and Indonesia, disrupting maritime trade and even causing tensions between Japan and its East Asian neighbors. In the annals of East Asian history, few names evoke such dread as the Wokou. This term was a blanket denotation for seafaring marauders of mixed origins that operated along the East China Sea from the 13th to the 16th century. The etymology of the name Wokou gives an insight into their infamous reputation. In Mandarin, the term translates to Japanese bandits, wo meaning Japan, and ku referring to bandits, pirates, or invaders. This was a moniker born from the early perception that these pirates were predominantly of Japanese origin. However, these people were neither entirely Japanese nor entirely pirates. Although there were records of Wokou pirates as early as the 3rd century AD, the truly violent raids and incidents surfaced in the 13th century. The increasing pressure of the Mongol invasion of Korea from 1218 forced the kingdom of Goryeo to concentrate its military forces inland, weakening the country's southern coastal defenses. Coincidentally, drought and starvation in Japan's Iki, Tsushima, and Goto Islands set the stage for the people to seek resources elsewhere, plundering foreign shores to survive. In the beginning, the Wokou pirates were predominantly composed of Japanese seafarers, masterless samurai or ronin, fishers, merchants, and outlaws fleeing from justice in Japan. However, over time, this changed drastically. The Wokou's initial targets were primarily the coastal areas of the Korean peninsula and China. These regions were chosen due to their proximity to Japan and their relatively rich resources. The Wokou often took advantage of weak or distracted local defenses, with the prime example of the Korean military focusing on defending against the Mongols, which gave the Wokou an opportunity to raid the southern coastal regions relatively undisturbed. Additionally, the Wokou targeted vessels that carried rice, as it was the currency at the time. When the authorities moved them inland in an effort against the Wokou, the pirates followed suit, raiding grain storehouses and taking in slaves in the process. Tactically, the Wokou favored swift and sudden attacks, utilizing their intimate knowledge of the sea and weather conditions. They used fast, agile boats, often under the cover of darkness, to approach their targets undetected. After conducting their raids, they would retreat quickly to avoid any significant retaliation. Their tactics were primarily hit and run, minimizing their own losses while maximizing damage to their targets. Their successes varied. Some raids resulted in significant plunder, making the Wokou a formidable threat. The Goryeo dynasty had just managed to ward off Mongol domination under the leadership of King Gongmin in 1356, achieving a significant degree of political and military independence. However, the kingdom was left weakened and vulnerable after the prolonged conflict with the Mongols, and the Wokou pirates presented a new and immediate threat. The coastal regions of the Korean peninsula were already suffering from the after effects of the Mongol invasions, yet they found themselves again under attack. This further stretched the resources of the kingdom and added to the instability and chaos of the time. As the Wokou evolved from hit-and-run bandits to well-organized military units marauding inland resources, the problem only seemed to increase. The incessant Wokou raids profoundly impacted Korean society and its economy. Coastal settlements were disrupted and trade routes were threatened. The inability of the Goryeo dynasty to effectively handle the Wokou threat, along with other internal and external challenges, contributed to a gradual loss of public faith and support. This was a critical factor in the eventual downfall of the Goryeo dynasty in 1392, bringing an end to its 500-year rule. In China, the Wokou pirates were a major security concern, particularly for the coastal regions during the Yuan and Ming dynasties. The Wokou raids disrupted trade, threatened local populations, and forced the government to divert significant resources toward coastal defense and anti-piracy measures. The Chinese economy was profoundly affected by this, with local economies in coastal regions often thrown into chaos by the Wokou's activities. In Japan, the central government's control over the regions, particularly the outlying islands and coastal areas, was relatively weak. The island of Tsushima, located in the straits between Japan and Korea, became a significant base for the Wokou pirates. The island's strategic location made it a perfect launching point for raids on the Korean peninsula and China's coastal regions. Moreover, Tsushima's relative distance from the political centers in Honshu allowed the pirates to operate with a degree of autonomy. In response to these seaborne threats, various strategies and policies were implemented over time, some of which were more successful than others. A key incident in the history of the Wokou was the Wei invasion, a 1419 invasion of the Joseon government against the Wokou bases on Tsushima. On June 19, 1419, General Yi Jongmu led a formidable fleet of 227 ships carrying 17,000 soldiers from Gyeoje Island toward Tsushima. Upon landing in Aso Bay the following day, General Yi initiated peaceful negotiations by sending captured Japanese pirates as emissaries to ask for a peaceful surrender. When Yi Jongmu's peaceful overtures received no response, he ordered his forces into action. The Korean soldiers embarked on a thorough raid of the island, plundering pirate settlements and engaging in skirmishes with the pirates and islanders. Despite these successes, the Korean forces suffered major losses, with thousands of Korean soldiers dead. By July 3rd, the Korean army retreated to Gyeoje Island due to the poor weather and major equipment damage, concluding the Oe invasion. Even though the invasion was quite successful, the continued struggle against the Wokou prompted governments to try diplomatic negotiation. This culminated in the Treaty of Gyehe in 1443. Proposed by Sosadamori, the daimyo of Tsushima, the treaty represented a significant shift in handling the Wokou problem. This diplomatic solution allowed for a regulated number of trade ships to sail from Tsushima to Korea, thus providing the So clan with a legitimate and profitable business enterprise. In return, the So clan committed to controlling and suppressing piracy in the waters between Japan and Korea. The impact of the Treaty of Gyehe on the 13th century Wokou was substantial. By providing a legal, regulated, and profitable alternative to piracy, it reduced the incentives for engaging in unlawful activities. Additionally, it leveraged local authority where the central Japanese government had little control, making the So clan the feudal lords of Tsushima responsible for suppressing piracy. For a long time, the activities of the Wokou pirates calmed down, but during the 16th century, they re-emerged alongside a massive shift in the composition of these groups. According to the book The History of Ming, it is stated that during the 16th century, a significant 70% of the Wokou pirates were of Chinese descent, while only 30% were Japanese. This shift can be traced back to a series of policies enacted by the Ming dynasty. In efforts to centralize political control, the Ming administration imposed strict trade bans with the rationale that unrestricted trade would potentially give rise to chaos. This policy outlawed maritime trade and as a result left many Chinese traders who relied on this form of commerce without a livelihood. Faced with dire economic circumstances, these traders began to form or join pirate groups, significantly increasing the Chinese presence among the Wokou pirates. In addition to creating economic desperation that drove many to piracy, these trade bans also unintentionally bolstered the Wokou pirates' control over the southeastern coast. This occurred because, as a consequence of the maritime trade prohibition, the Ming dynasty reduced the size of its navy, undermining its ability to combat the rise in smuggling and piracy activities. The unintended result was an increase in the Wokou pirates' control of the coastal regions, predominantly led by the newly formed Chinese factions. Further compounding the issue, the Ming court was deeply embroiled in corruption. It was not uncommon for Chinese officials to establish profitable relationships with the pirates, deriving benefits from the illicit trade activities. This level of internal corruption created a barrier to effective central control and enforcement of the anti-piracy laws. The Wokou pirates didn't disappear abruptly, but their numbers gradually dwindled over time. By the close of the 16th century, the frequency of their raids had significantly lessened, and ultimately historical records of their activities vanished completely. Several factors that affected this included the reinforcement of previously weak regions in China. In the past, they were easy targets, but advancements in naval strategies and improved defensive measures impeded the pirates' operations. Furthermore, the unification of Japan played a major role. This crucial political development led to an increase in financial resources and augmented the Japanese government's control, which in turn better equipped it to combat the menace of the pirates. As the Japanese authorities tightened their grip, the pirates found it increasingly difficult to continue their operations, contributing to their gradual decline. The lasting impact of the Wokou pirates was marked by violence, disruption, and conflict, which required the Korean, Chinese, and Japanese governments to devote centuries to eradicating them.